Welcome to Social Engineering Your Metrics. This is using data science to provide value in reporting. If you're here looking for a data science talk where we're going to be talking about all these fancy neural networks, long short-term memory models, and all of that fun stuff, you might be disappointed. They're all going to be mentioned, but that's not going to be the main focus. Honestly, this was probably, if we want to talk mathematically, a Stats 101 level course. But it's something that's important. It's a conversation that needs to be had. Can everyone in the back hear me okay? Cool. I like to pace, so having a microphone, a handheld one's a little tricky at times. So anyway, about me, I'm the founder, instructor, and content developer at the Ascension. By day, I do threat hunting and intelligence at Mercari. I served in the Navy on submarines. I've written for Forbes and other publications, such as the fine AT&T Security Alien Vault blog. Not that Kate's back there and there might be a check in the mail, or any of that. I do a lot of competition as well in both OSINT and social engineering. I'm the 2017 DerbyCon SECTF winner. I've been on the winning team for the past 3 years at the DEF CON OSINT search party powered by Trace Labs, the missing person CTF. Despite not speaking French at the time, I was the runner-up in a French-speaking SECTF. The phrase "parlez-vous anglais" worked really well. I think I also became a tap dancing professional that day as well, coming up with excuses as to why a non-French speaker is calling French people. It worked. I also wrote Practical Social Engineering. Here's a copy. There's 2 copies that will be part of the giveaway. If you want to order it, go for it. Those are both redirect domains, hence the HTTP. One takes you to Amazon, the other to No Starch, but either or, don't feel obligated. I'm not here to pitch the book. I'm actually here to try to educate people and change things. Standard disclaimer, thoughts and opinions are mine, not my employer's, past, present, or future. Some of the past ones might want to think it's theirs, but no. Anyway, so here's the objectives for today. We're going to talk about general metrics. Then we'll talk about social engineering specific metrics. And then the problem with metrics. From there, I'm going to introduce you some new metrics. Maybe not necessarily entirely new, but under terms you may not be intimately familiar with that may be more relatable than the ones you may be aware of. We'll talk about some analysis models and then the potential for future integration. So, when we think about current InfoSec metrics, what comes to mind?
Vulnerabilities.
Yes. What else? Patches, yes. What else?
Incidents.
MTTR. Incidents, yes. All of those things are there, right? We also have password metrics, right? So this is the number of passwords within the breach. Okay, cool. Here's what I like to know about those. Anytime I can get my hands on breach data, I want to know the length and complexity and periodicity, or frequency rather, of a specific password's occurrence. Just because it's on John or rocku.txt, cool. But I want to know what the average length is. I want to know about reuse, because that's where adversaries are really going to catch you with your pants down, right? They don't care that it's a 12-character password, but if it's, spring 2022, exclamation point, spring 2022, I mean, is that really hard to guess? Just a few days ago on LinkedIn, someone had posted a screenshot. They were building a lab environment. They were using pro wrestlers' names for the Active Directory accounts. And someone's like, you totally left off Hulk Hogan. I was like, if you create a Hulk Hogan account, that password had better be brother. Ironically, my cousin's in Orlando at a Hulk Hogan autograph signing right now. I tried to get him to take an ancestry DNA test with him, but he wouldn't do it. Just to prove that everybody's not his brother. But we also have breach metrics, right? So with that, that's going to be things like dwell time and how bad they were pwned and the financial loss and all of that stuff. It's important. I mean, yeah, but it's not always important. Response metrics. Now we're talking about things that somewhat matter. Dwell time. That makes some really good vendor publications. It's real. It's something we should be concerned with, but if they're able to get in and stay in undetected that long, the dwell time is a moot point. It's like you need to go back a bit. And then of course there's return on investment, right? So when we talk about passwords, again, we've got length, complexity, age. Breaches, the number of assets, password reuse, the number of breaches that occur, and then the ratio of users in breaches. Well, these breaches collectively affected, on average, 143,000 users per organization. Okay? How does that help me improve my security program? My organization does not have 143,000 people in it. So that is a perfect example of the flowchart between data, information, and intelligence, right? An example of intelligence is, at this current moment at 3:13 p.m. in Austin, Texas, it is 79 degrees outside. That's intelligence, because that tells us that we probably don't want to be wearing a sweater outside, right? It is sunny outside as well, so if you have sunglasses, you may want to wear them, especially if you have sensitive eyes. Another data point would be, data would be the current temperature in Seattle, Washington is, I don't know, presumably I'll say 58. That's probably a safe guess. That's data. Is it undisputable? Yes. Well, that one is disputed, but if I actually knew the number offhand, it is factual, it is true, but it is irrelevant. It does nothing for us right here. In the world of working from home, it is not a reason to put a shirt on to get on Zoom. Response metrics. Mean time to respond. That's a good one, right? How long does it take us to respond? I really like this metric, but I'm actually going to give you a different terminology for that that's probably going to be a little bit easier for the layperson, the less technical team members, and management to consume. Because at the end of the day, we have to be able to speak nerd. We have to be able to build rapport with each other. But the higher you ascend in management, the more you need to be able to translate nerd to business. They don't care about a cross-site request forgery. They care about how much they're going to have to pay out in a bug bounty or how much it's going to cost when they get caught with their pants down. The return on investment and the realized risk, right? Keep that in mind. The number of incidents, that's questionable as well, depending on your threat model. Dwell time, yeah, we know. It's how long an adversary remains hidden and dormant before being detected, whether voluntarily or involuntarily. ROI, ratio of expenditures versus the forecasted or perceived losses. So let's talk about true social engineering metrics. Chris, what do you think of when you think social engineering metrics?
Click-through ratios.
Yep. Especially using some of John Strand's terminology, especially if you're dealing with like a pen test puppy mill, right? What do they care about? Clicks and opens. We're super elite. We sent this out and 98% of the organization opened it and 60% clicked on it. What's rule number one of improv?
Yes.
No matter the question, the answer is always yes and. Yes and they clicked on it, but what happened? Well, I don't know. Okay. I click on malicious crap all the time. Not even when I'm analyzing it. How are you supposed to know something is malicious if you don't investigate it? Granted, some of the people clicking on it are barely qualified to show up to work on time and do their job adequately, much less investigate something, but that's not a them problem. That's an us problem. So when we talk about these metrics, opens, clicks, credentials stolen, that's one that I actually like because it's actually indicative of something that can cause some serious havoc in your organization. I mean, wasn't there a breach or something that's been making the news lately that had something to do with snagging credentials from somewhere? Sounds like somebody's trying to get a ride back there. But anyway, if you want to go a little step further, you can go with averages or ratios. Ratios are really good. Opens, clicks, and stolen credentials, right? So what's the problem with all of these? Any ideas? They don't really measure a whole lot. If anything, they measure a consultant's ability to monetize the minimal effort for the maximum paycheck. I mean, I say that, it really sounds mean. I'm sorry, but it's a bitter, I mean, you ought to know, it's a jagged little pill. I mean, sorry. So the reason I say that, emails are meant to be opened. Even if someone doesn't directly open them, in some cases, some mail providers and browsers also have a preview pane. Sometimes the preview pane itself will indicate to someone who's measuring opens that it's been opened when it hasn't. Right? Honestly, a lot of the training platforms, they fall short on detonating links because they're like, oh, just report this. Okay, it gets reported. What happens? It sits there. Whoever it is that's running the training platform gets to benefit from it, whether they do something with it or not. But you, the customer that's paying for the platform, do you ever see feedback based on that? Do you ever see changes? Right? I'm not going to speak for every platform out there, but I'm going to say confidently that greater than 50% of this audience would agree that the client never sees anything discernible come from that. So, you know, and honestly, most tech folks, people like my mom, they use the same password or some variant thereof everywhere. We've not gotten to the point of getting things like password managers in the mainstream. Granted, things like, I don't know if Android's doing it, but I know iPhone's offering something kind of similar. They're offering email obfuscation services now. They're trying to take steps, and they are working to get things more normalized. I'm not a fan of DuckDuckGo. I'm not going to get into why in here, but if you want to have that conversation, we can have it in the lobby afterwards. They're doing good things for security, though. I don't agree with the fact that they've got a billboard in like every city, and honestly, I think that their commercial with the music of, who is it, Sting, that's making fun of all the other search engines. I think it's stupid, but it's doing a lot of good things for security, because in the airport yesterday, I heard a couple of old ladies talking about it. And then I got to pontificate why I think DuckDuckGo is trash. But as a byproduct, we as security professionals have not found a way to integrate security and the concepts that we need in the workplace into someone's personal life. You teach someone how to secure their kid's account, how to secure their home network. They're going to go home, they're going to do it, they're going to take it to heart, and it's going to become part of their lifestyle, right? It goes back to diet versus lifestyle. You do a diet, you're going to fall off of it. You make a lifestyle change, you'll be fine, right? Same thing. So keep that in mind, right? If you need proof that people use the same password all over the place, go take a look at Dehashed. Connect to the Have I Been Pwned API. It'll tell you all you need to know and then some. So what am I getting at? If we care about opens, it is encouraging punishing people for opening emails. Granted, you're going to have most people acting in good faith, but you're going to have those trouble employees that purposely blow off emails that are important for things they don't want to do, saying, oh, I thought that was a fish. I mean, I've seen it happen, right? It already, that is a slippery slope. And you're going to have some naive employees that are going to think everything's a fish, and they're just going to start consuming so much of security's resources to try to validate things. But yeah, they're meant to be opened. It doesn't accurately address risk, because let's face it, if your architecture is so fragile that someone opening a phishing email collapses your architecture, might I recommend going and getting a CISSP? System hardening might not be in the best pursuit of your career success at this time. You might want to go and look otherwise, because that completely negates the concept of defense in depth, right? If a system is that fragile, then why are you even at a maturity level when you should be phishing employees? Getting into clicks. I will admit, clicks are more relevant than opens. It tests the human, but honestly, if you have proper defense in depth, that should be minor. Because at the end of the day, social engineering is human intelligence. It is human. It is the human element. It is attacking things that people may call the lizard brain, right? You're dealing with underlying psychological concepts that are, in many cases, subconscious to a lot of people. But at the end of the day, these tests should not be to test the people. The tests should be to test your processes, most importantly, secondarily, your architecture, and then finally, as a tertiary thing, it should be there to condition the humans to make the decisions you want. But they should only be confronted with making those decisions only after your procedural and your technical implementations have either lapsed, failed, or in many cases, just non-existent. That's the problem. Too many times you deal with managers, it's like, I want you to come in, I want you to bulldoze everybody, I want you to fish them all, I want you to prove just how stupid they are. Okay, maybe. Can I prove how stupid you are? That sounds like a more fun game. But honestly, it should be more of a test of your technical solution than the people. But, you know, as the slide says, managers often miss that point. Stolen creds. It's predicated on failing to have a password policy. It's predicated on not having multi-factor authentication. It does hold weight because of password reuse. But, you know, if somebody wants my Facebook password, just hold a gun to my head, I'll open one password and show you. And then I'll go change it. It's all good. I mean, do you want me to try to read out all 64 to 100 characters of it? I ain't got time for that. I've got more smoking and joking to do in the speaker's room later today, I think. I don't know. But anyway, it can also lead to scope creep, and it does lead to illegal activity. Like when I do an OSINT report or a social engineering report, if one person hires me to do an engagement against just them, I will give them usernames and passwords, no problem. If a company hires me, here's your choice. Do you want the users that need to reset their passwords, or do you want the passwords that you need to put on the block list? You're not getting both. And here's why. I have no assurance after transmission of that report that everyone in that company, I have no assurance that the company is going to secure the report correctly. Assuming they do, I have no assurance that people with access to said report are going to act legally and ethically and not use it to abuse people. And quite honestly, they don't need both. So you have that. So here's the TLDR on that. Organizations often, and I'm not saying this is not a blanket statement that all organizations, but many put the burden solely on non-technical employees. Let's be honest, finance and accounting, I care that they know the bare minimum about security. I don't care if they know what cross-site scripting is. I don't care if they even know what SQL is. Honestly, it's probably better that they don't. What I care about is that they are rightly suspicious about things and that my paychecks come to the correct account on time. That's what I care about. Should they know what a password manager is? Depends on your company. Should they know what the difference between SHA-256 and 512 is? No. They could probably say, oh, well, one's bigger than the other. Okay, what's SHA? Doesn't matter, right? And organizations also fail to see that technology is never going to completely solve the problem. To kind of get into a different cultural reference, I've hit you with some Alanis Morissette. Let's go to some like New York hip hop here. You know, what do you have to buy technical solutions? Money. Mo money, mo what? Problems, right? So more technical solutions, they won't fully solve a problem, but they can potentially mitigate it. But the thing is, oftentimes, and this is a problem in various arenas, it's in vendor marketing materials, it's in vendor analysts, like, I don't know, what's that magic quadrant thing? It's in that, and it's also in the mindset of management of, I don't want to fully confront this problem and take the time to work through the steps to solve the problem. I just want to throw money at it and be done with it. That is the problem. And then at the end, I mean, it is a bitter pill to swallow, but a lot of people have too much ego and pride to admit their own shortcomings. And having worked in consulting, one of the things, I mean, I was paid to go in and tell organizations that their babies were ugly. Organizations have a hard time hearing that because you've got people who have intimately worked on constructing something and putting it together, and for you to say it is flawed and here is why, they take it as a personal attack, and that's the problem. So, thanks for talking about the crash course in current metrics. You all ready to hear about some that actually matter, at least in my opinion? Open to click ratio. So, in comparison, 100 people open the email, but only 33 click it. That is something that is manageable. That is something that, if we're talking statistically, qualitative versus quantitative, that is quantitative in nature because you can repeat that type of engagement and measure the progressive improvements. You can measure differences between those engagements to determine potential triggers where you can invest time and effort or potentially technical solutions, if need be, to solve that problem. Open to action. What's an example of action? Clicking, inputting data, forwarding. I mean, that's one of my favorites. Like with the fish, clicking is so last year, right? Actually, it's like so 5 years ago. Macros, oh, let's not even talk about macros. But if you can get people to forward it, and then you get people replying all to say stop replying all, if you embed a link somewhere in there, I'll tell you my personal favorite place is, doesn't matter what the link says, I just need the word unsubscribe. Put it at the bottom. You've got your denial of service going on because everybody's replying all to say stop replying all. Meanwhile, someone's going to be smart and click unsubscribe. The most successful fish I did, it was absolute junk. Not a single link in it. 13 days in a row. On the 14th day, I am sorry. It has been brought to my attention that this email campaign is not in compliance with the USA Can Spam Act. I did not have an unsubscribe link in it. If you wish to be unsubscribed from this list, please click here. Here's your next musical reference. What can I say except you're welcome? But the important metric here, open to reporting. How long from the time an email is opened until it is reported? Whether that be through a report fish button, forwarding the email to security, calling security, walking to security, or I mean, quite frankly, if you're into smoke signals, Morse code, or carrier pigeons, that works too. I mean, there's that. And then the same thing for clicks, right? You can do the same thing for opens and clicks. And they're both meaningful sets of metrics because you can work on how do we get fewer people to open these emails? How do we get fewer people to click these emails? How do we get more people to report this? That tells you where you need to invest your time and effort. And then of course, whatever action they do, whether it be click, open, enter, whatever, to reporting. When I oversaw security in a previous role, I had someone that clicked a link and they came and they were like, I'm so stupid, I clicked this link, what do you want me to do? I was like, I'm coming to your office, it's all good. So I just unplugged it from the network, did what I had to do, it was all good. After that, anyone in here ever been in the military or worked on a government site? So do y'all remember those pesky laminated bomb threat worksheets that was next to every single phone with the grease pencil that was like, here are the questions you need to ask? I call those the oh shit worksheets. I created my own version of them, laminated them, and put them on everyone's desk. I clicked something. Here's the website I was on. This is the email. This is everything. They fill that out. They leave it there. I changed all the network cables to yellow. If you've ever worked in classified environments, you can understand why the Department of Defense absolutely lost their mind on me. This was on an unclassified network. And then I went and I bought zip ties and scissors. and I zip tied a pair of scissors to every single network cable. And I said, if you're not comfortable unplugging a yellow cable, cut it. That way, all evidence is preserved, it's off the network, we're good. That way, the next time someone clicked on something, they could fill out their oh shit worksheet, but at the same time, they could immediately report it to me. That's driving that action to reporting time drastically down. That's taking it from 10 minutes, we'll say 10 to 15 minutes, because when this user specifically did this, I was outside smoking, I smoked at the time, to a minute and a half. So, containment. So with this, we talked about open to click.
Joe,
Yes.
sorry to interrupt. That last idea is pretty fucking awesome.
Thank you.
How many people or how many places do you know that have adopted that?
None.
Serious?
I know of one, but that's only because I adopted it, but I'm pretty sure since I left, they rolled it back.
Okay. That's
Yeah. I mean, I've been pontificating it from the speaker pulpit for some time, but I've never had any feedback of anyone that's actually implemented it. But, I mean, you can't get shocked from cutting a networking cable. I mean,
the laminated of shit. That's fucking awesome.
yeah.
That's just dumb.
What website were you on? What application were you using? What time of day was it? What was the subject line of the email? There's so many different ways you could go about it, and it would work fine, because that's giving you context that we're going to get into a little bit later. That's going to give you some hunt context and some IR context. You can go hop into your mail server. Oh, well, here's the subject line. Let's see who else got it. Let's pull it all back, yank it from the inboxes. Cool, had this domain. All right, we're going to sinkhole this. We're going to do that. Boom. Oh, it's because of this application? Oh, this application's not on the allow list. Cool, let's go into our MDR or EDR and take that out too. Done. What other events exist with this? Oh, well, 7 other users did this. Okay, cool. Well, let's quarantine them as well. There you have it, right? That's why it's a big deal. So with opens, we have clicks as well. So, inevitably, you want the click to action ratio to be like, honestly, 0 to 0. You want the ratio to be 1, right? That's what you really want. That's utopian. If we lived in a utopian world, we would not be having these conferences. Really, we would have nothing to talk about. Chris would not have a reason to drink whiskey. He'd have to find one.
I'd find one. We would find one.
Where there's a will, there's a way. So that's the action ratios. Here are some distance ones. Open to action, click to action, open to report, click to report, action to report. So, what is a distance measurement? Everything we were talking about before were ratios. This is distance. This is hinged upon time. Mean time to respond, mean time to detect. Honestly, when you're talking about like statistic things like the mean time to do whatever, like the mean time to see Chris drink whiskey, that really just sounds kind of intimidating. I know what mean means. I know that the mean is an average, but sometimes people don't understand that you're speaking statistically. And sometimes when you're using terminology like the mean time to do something, it sounds like big words. And some people, they have fragile egos. They don't like hearing big words. So use distance. This is the distance between this. The distance is 39 minutes. Okay, your next engagement. It's 36 minutes. Okay, there's a 3-minute improvement. That is quantifiable. That is something you can measure and improve upon. So that's why it's a big deal. The relevance is, honestly, yes, do we want our incident response team to be busy all the time? No. If anything, we want them to be threat hunting, going to training, going to conferences, writing blogs, updating GitHubs, doing nothing. Again, that's utopian. But at the same time, we want to be notified sooner rather than later. If someone clicks on something, I want them to tell me, not some other user that just had something pop up on their screen demanding Bitcoin. Or, I mean, that's like so 5 years ago, Monero, right? If it's demanding cryptocurrency or something like that, I would rather find out, okay, well, someone clicked something and it just happens to be an exploit kit for this type of ransomware or this type of other malware. disconnect it from the network, stop the spread, minimize the spread, so that I'm finding out from you. The incident response team has work to do, but less work to do than if it's the entire organization. And then that way you don't have to worry about getting emails and phone calls from Brian Krebs. Just saying. Also, he's not here today, but with a hat tip to good old Win Schwartau, a seminal book in this industry I think everyone should read is Time-Based Security. The TLDR of the book is this: you shouldn't be investing all of your effort into trying to stop everything. You should invest to such a level to where you have enough defenses to protect and defend until you can detect and act upon it. So you're not looking for the perfect solution, you're looking for the most suitable solution. So focus on building your defenses in such a way that provide a suitable amount of protection while also building up your detections to where, I'm going to use vendor terms here, so if you're playing a drinking game, sorry. We want to shift those detections to the left, to the left, to the left, right? I'm not going to choreograph a dance to that. I'm not even going to try to sing it either. I'm the person karaoke bars pay to come in at last call and make people leave. So, that's the closest to the beehive you're going to see me. Anyway, with that being said, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to enable detections to move to the left. So basically, how much lead time do you have to enact your incident response activities before it becomes an oh holy shit moment? How long before someone with chief in their title comes barking up your tree? Or even worse, general. And I'm not talking about military generals, I'm talking like general counsel. Or human resources, because usually that means that somebody's about to go bye-bye. Or, goodbye for any of the AOL generations here. What if I'm a consultant? You're in a particular advantageous position because you can provide even more value to your clients within the community and the community as a whole. Because you can do per client metrics, right? You can anonymize them or heavily redact them on a per client basis, or you can do sliced engagement metrics. So we ran this same phishing engagement against 7 organizations. This is the outcome. And then you can even compare those. Organization 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? That's the easy way to do it. You can also go for population metrics. So the samples per client. That would be all of the engagements with the same client. And then you've got your full population. So this is getting into that stats 101 stuff, right? So like when you're talking about your samples, n equals 30 for minimum viable sample size, and then you've got the entire population, which blah, 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 yeah. So that's where we're going with this. So getting into the basic statistic measurements, you've got the mean. Let me put that into Sesame Street terms. That's the average. That is the most central tendency of a data set. You've got the median. That is dead center. That's where I graduated in high school. My graduating class had 146. I graduated 73. My senior prediction was that I was going to be a meter maid. People took bets on how long it was going to take me to fail boot camp. I have a 20-year reunion coming up, and I can't wait to drive up in my Jaguar. It'll be very nice. Anyway, standard deviation. That is the amount of variance between the data points. A high standard deviation means that it's largely dissimilar. A very small standard deviation means that it's all grouped kind of close together. Like if you're shooting at a target, you want a very low standard deviation, typically center mass. But, it is what it is. I've talked about quantitative and qualitative. Qualitative is like low, medium, and high. You understand what it means, but you cannot directly compare it to something else. What I consider medium, you may consider high, right? It is what it is. You also have mixed method, which is some combination thereof. And that's what we're seeing with like the vulnerability scoring stuff, right? So you've got CVSS, which is largely quantitative, numerical based. It's something you can measure, and then a low, medium, and high, but you can also apply mitigating factors to say this is low, medium, high. So that's somewhat mixed method. So when we talk about things like data science, this is probably going to be the most data science-y thing that I say in the whole presentation. You could do regression analysis. Regression is great because it allows you to compare data points against all other data points in a numeric format and find trends. That's how people find who the best person to market to is. I took a graduate level data science class and they handed me a spreadsheet and said, find the best person to market to, or better yet, find the best woman to market to. So I had to filter out everything that was man in the spreadsheet and then go through and using regression. Coincidentally, it was only 6 lines of code using R, but anyway, comparing each data point against each other data point, and it was like women between the ages of 35 and 40 that are either divorced or married with 2 or 3 children with an income of this. That is how they come across that. It gets normalized, it gets put into, once normalized, it's in a numeric format, and then it's compared. That's a huge chunk of data science. If you want to compare known true and known false, then you can do that with 2 data sets, and it's called cluster analysis. But if you have a data set big enough, so if you're a consultant especially, if you have a data set big enough, you can get some valid use out of it. If you run a program like this for a significant amount of time, you can get value from it. You're not going to be able to start an engagement tomorrow and then in 6 months have enough data to run regression. I mean, you could do it. The numbers are going to crunch. They're going to show something. There may be some validity to it, but the data set is going to be so small that it's really not going to be meaningful for you. So when we talk about the practical application of this, you need to integrate with your SIM or system logs of some sort, right? Because in doing so, that affords you the ability to trace all the steps, the equivalent in Wireshark of follow stream, right? It gives you the steps to say, well, emails with this word or with this type of subject, or, I mean, if you really want to get really nerdy about it, this font are more apt to be clicked on than others. That is a data point that it would be measurable, and you can go back with your system logs or your SIM, trace the steps going in and say, oh yeah, this worked. Same thing with the ticketing system. I hate tickets. I think we all hate tickets. Everybody except for my boss, he lives and dies by JIRA. Hey, I mean, it is what it is. But basically, the big thing with that is you've got to have some sort of time. So that's going to rely on probably UTC. You should probably be using NTP or something similar to make sure your time is synced so that, a few seconds is not a big deal in terms of your reporting, but you need to know precisely when the email was sent or when the email was opened and when all the activities happened. So when they report it, the person taking the report needs to say, this happened at this time, right? This hour, this minute, so that way you can measure your distances. I've pseudocoded the concept, but I've not finished it, so I really honestly don't feel comfortable sharing that. In the integration with data science, you can do your cluster analysis. That's going to give you some A/B testing of sorts. That's the easy way to think about it. Does this work or does this work? Which way works better? You're not going to be able to tell the adversary what type of fish you want them to send you, but you can learn which ones your users are more apt to fall for, and then you can further condition them not to fall for that type. You've got recurrent neural networks and long short-term memory models. That's something you can do specifically within like natural language processing. That's far more advanced to look at beyond this. I would say in the model of crawl, walk, run, that's probably like Usain Bolt, like sprinting or like ultra marathoning. So I wouldn't be looking at that quite right now. So in conclusion, you don't have to have a doctorate in data science to be able to collect, analyze, and interpret the data points, right? You can look at it, you can inform your own decisions, and you can describe that. You don't have to have a doctorate. You don't have to have a master's, even a bachelor's. You don't have to have any education on it. You should probably read up on it so that you don't come out saying something entirely wrong. Keeping with my musical references, you want to make sure you have the right lyrics. You don't want to be singing "Hold Me Close, Young Tony Danza," right? It's Tiny Dancer. right? You want to make sure, like, you don't have to have that formal education, but having some level of familiarity and exposure, and I don't want to use the term education, but pseudo-education on the topic goes a long way. I mean, I've taken a couple graduate level classes at this. I'm actually considering going and getting another master's, maybe even a doctorate in it, but I don't know if I'm ready for that level of punishment right now. And let's be honest, there's a lot of snake oil within data science, but it's there, especially within sales and product teams. Wow, is that much different than InfoSec? See me in the hallway afterwards, and I will demonstrate my advanced, persistent, next generation, AI-powered, machine learning enabled, zero trust, zero knowledge pencil eraser. Exactly. And let's be honest, statistics can be manipulated for ill gains, right? That's just the reality of it. So understanding something like the framework of CRISP-DM, which is talking about data modeling and ensuring that you're doing ethical data collection and ethical analysis is very important. So, just keep all of that stuff in mind. I've got a coupon code and stuff to show you, but I'm going to open it up for questions right now before I share the coupon code with you. Any questions, concerns, complaints, grievances, thoughts, opinions, or otherwise? Not that I've ever rehearsed that phrase.
In terms of reporting to management, leadership, C-level, and then down to your engineers, have you looked at different ways of communicating your results? Any view on that?
The easiest way I would say to report it is you're going to have to socialize the concept to management. This is what we're doing. This is the end game. Show them some metrics and some instances where people have gotten burned from social engineering type attacks and say, okay, we're going to institute a program. This is going to be the scope and purpose of the program, basically a concept of operations. We're not asking for your permission. We're just informing you. We're going to do a baseline test. Here's the formal baseline test. This is how it stacks. Other companies really don't share this data with other companies, so we don't have anything to compare this with. So we are going to compare with ourselves. We're going to be doing these engagements at this interval or this infrequent interval. How would you like us to report it? More often than not, it could just be a single piece of paper, last month, this month. Or it could be a formal report where they actually look at the fish and they look at all the technical stuff. Some are going to enjoy that. Some are going to say, give me 1 page. Or, hey, I'm on the elevator to the 8th floor. You've got until then. So the best way to communicate is the one that works. The same thing with oh, well, what's the best operating system for OSINT? The one that works for you. Any other questions? Here's my contact information. So I'll be around. Thanks for coming out and have fun.